I go.
All right, so during your speech, you gave us all an invitation that if we disagree with you about something, to come back here and see you after class.
Yes.
So right now, Ann Coulter is in there telling the world that, well, Washington and Lee and the peripheral area, that
An important part of the world.
granted, but she's telling people that ultimately the root cause of conservative movement's problems is the 1965 Immigration Act passed by Ted Kennedy and the Senate to completely reverse the 1920s policy of the quota system, largely propelled by the KKK, that is. But it's led to serious demographic shifts in the United States in the long term. It's eaten away Nixon's silent majority. Is she wrong?
No, I think she's right in much of that. The 1965 Immigration Act was kind of sold under false pretenses. I don't think the American public realized what they were getting into or the scale of the immigration wave that we would experience that has continued for decades. It's not unusual in American history to have had big waves of immigration, but there's usually been some sort of pause so you digest. And the logic is fairly simple. The quality of your assimilation is affected by the quantity of your immigration, because the more you have continuously piling on past levels of immigration, the more likely you are to get self-reinforcing ethnic communities, which you don't want. You want the cliche, the great melting pot. So I think it's an important issue to focus on. I'm not like Ann, I'm not a single issue immigration voter. There are other issues that are extremely important to us as conservatives, but it is something that should be focused on. And it's not just illegal immigration, which is kind of the lazy soundbite of most conservative politicians. We should also be thinking about levels of legal immigration.
So just one other question. You spoke with Chuck a little bit earlier about the backlash against conservatives on college campuses, and he pressed you about whether or not that existed in the journalism world. I was curious, you worked for the Virginia Advocate, you helped us found the Spectator here in 89, you said, Paul?
89.
89 with Paul's father here. So very recently, actually just this week, we ourselves released our latest issue. I don't know if you've seen it.
The Karl Marx's?
It is. Our current founder here.
Dip into it yet?
Our current founder here, working the camera, wrote a fantastic article dealing with a proposal to institute a culture and diversity course requirement. There were many arguments for and against it. However, this has created a massive backlash against the Spectator. It's led to professors going on long tirades, in my classes especially. Thanks a lot, Paul. And it's caused, while it has certainly led to a lot of dialogue, it has led to some animosity and an admitted backlash on campus against conservatives and us in particular. And so, while that may or may not be as easy to deal with in the national sphere, when we go back to the context of conservatism on college campuses, dealing with this liberal majority, that it's not necessarily the case in WNL, but you certainly have a very loud minority at the best. And so I'm curious, you mentioned that conservatives are at a higher standard. We have to learn and really know what we're talking about. How do we deal with the minority on campus that's extremely loud and unwilling to we simply have to buckle down, or is there any way to get through this?
Well, first of all, what you're doing is extremely important, and you should welcome controversy. And if you have people screaming at you, literally, figuratively, and perhaps literally, that's a good thing. You know, it's not pleasant, but it means you're over target. So I haven't read the issue yet, but I look forward to reading even more now. But you've told me this.
We'll have a copy for you at breakfast.
But there's a certain minority that's going to be incorrigible and that you could never reach. But there are also people in the middle that may be persuadable. And what you're doing is kind of spreading mustard seeds, and you don't know, what sort of soil they're going to fall in. But it's very important to hold the flag up, and it's also, it helps hold people accountable. And unless these kind of publications and student groups on campus, it's much easier for the administration to completely buckle on the other side, to the other side. And the fact that there was an article in your publication that I understand made the president cancel his subscription, is this understanding correct? That's good, because it means that he heard you. He might not have liked you. He might want to block it out. But the next time something like this comes up, you might think, well, I don't want to deal with that cover story in the Spectator. That's a really good thing.
We actually took a screenshot of his unsubscription and made it the back cover.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And conservative publications, they should be fun on campus. They should have a guerrilla aspect to them because you guys are guerrillas. You are embattled usually on all sides, and you should be publishing things that are relevant to exactly what's happening on campus. A lot of these conservative publications, they're full of people who want to be the next George Will. Well, we have a George Will already. What schools like this don't have is really engaged conservative journalists hitting home on the important issues here and now of this place. So doing that is just important, and hats off to you.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you for being with us here today.